Okay, it's summer. That means road trips. And in some cases, it means retail study tours and taking tours, visiting convenience stores in all their glory in the busiest part of the year. That's our conversation today. Joining us for our conversation today about a recent retail study tour that he led is Frank Beard. And Frank, for those of you who know Frank, he's been a friend of the industry for about 10 years and came about the industry, I think, in a pretty unique way and couldn't be a bigger advocate for all the cool things that you see on the road. We're going to talk about some of those things. So, Frank, for those who don't know you, you want to kind of give a quick overview about how you became known in our industry.
Yeah. Hey, Jeff, thanks for having me back on the podcast. It's funny you mentioned that because I was literally thinking this morning that it's been almost a decade, I think, since I was calling you guys from a hotel room in like the middle of nowhere while I was on the road. And like, I don't know, these guys want me to go on a convenience store podcast. I might as well. And wow, it's been almost a decade.
Yeah. But, and it started with you. You had a previous job that was not connected to the industry, but you really liked the industry. And you made it a point to find great convenience stores along the way, and that kind of made you semi-famous, viral, whatever the phrase is now.
Correct. Yeah, it was kind of a crazy situation, really. I mean, for all the talk of young people wanting to go viral and wanting to be on video and do that for career goals, I have the weird distinction of actually having made a career pivot from a viral stunt. Make a long story short, I was in a career I did not like, and I was going to do literally anything possible to get out of that. And make a very long story short, I ended up pulling this stunt where I wanted to show that you can actually make healthy choices on the go. And I thought, well, what better way to put that to the test than just spending an entire month eating out of gas stations? And my job had me traveling 5 days a week, so I had an enormous amount of variability in that, which made it really fun because I didn't always know where I was going. And yeah, it was great. That was probably the healthiest I'd ever been in my life at the end of that. I would love to get back to that point 10 years later. But no, it was fun, landed me in this industry. I've worked for some awesome companies, currently work at Rovertown. We're a mobile app platform for convenience retailers. Past affiliations include Standard Cognition and Gas Buddy, and it's been a fun journey. And honestly, I love this industry, the people in it. Could not be happier with how things have gone.
And a bunch of years ago, we paired you. We did an odd couple thing, and we said, okay, let's go to the NAC show. And Frank, you're known for healthy eating in gas stations, so it makes sense to pair you with a guy who believes things should be double fried before they start tasting good. And that was Al Bear, who equally loves convenience stores. And you guys drove to the NAC show together and did a little mini road trip there. He introduced you some things that were a little bit more high.
Maybe good for the soul, not good for the body necessarily.
Right. And you introduced him to things that were green. So, that's some of the road trip experience. And there's a lot more we can talk about with that. But what I really want to talk about is your most recent road trip. And for those who don't follow Frank on LinkedIn or any other social media, please do so, because he just came back from leading a 40-person group of Australians on a retail study tour where they visited a whole bunch of convenience stores, and just want to talk about the experience of, how do you set up something like this? You have somebody come in from another country or say, I want to visit stores. You're the guy. How do you, what's your reaction? What area of the country you want? How are you going to do this? Are we only going to eat at convenience? There's so many questions I have. I'm not going to throw them all out in that, but that's just the setup. Just give us the setup for what you just went through.
Yeah, a couple things. And first, I'll just say you mentioned social. Just follow me on LinkedIn. That's where I post everything, and you'll see a lot of my photos there. So to give you context for what we're talking about today, that's the only real platform I post on anymore because everyone in our industry is on it. But yeah, the simple question or the simple answer to how do you plan a study tour is it depends. It depends on the group. I was fortunate with a crew from United Convenience Buyers that they're a fun group, a lot of smart people, and they're very laid back and just looking to learn as much as they can. You could not find a more fun group for a study tour if you looked. But I have a bit of a different philosophy on road trips, and this is really born out of sort of what we were talking about, how I'd been traveling around the country visiting stores. the reality is that I've been to thousands of convenience stores over the past 10 years, urban, suburban, rural, you name it. And the reality is that being in stores is the only way to really understand the business. You can sit through a presentation at a conference and learn about a company. You can watch a webinar and learn a lot about a company. But you are the only way to really understand a brand's positioning, the behavior of its customers, its strengths, its gaps, and what it's doing well and maybe not doing well and trying to figure out is to just get inside of a store and see it firsthand for yourself. So when I put these together, to me, the antithesis of a good study tour is a lot of people rolling in, choking on their ties, wearing suits, and listening to a 60-minute presentation in a store from an executive. That's not to say that it's not a good thing to meet with people. I met with a lot of retailers on this visit, but stores are loud, they're noisy, they're busy, customers are coming in and out of the door. The best thing about having a retailer meet you at the store is the ability for people to come up and talk to them in a small group or one-on-one and ask their questions that way. So I like to have a mix of everything, a mix of guided visits where they just say a few words and then people mill about and come talk to them when they want, and a mix of visits where candidly we just show up unexpected. I'll get on the microphone on the
turn.
Yeah, exactly. And there's times too where you do want that spontaneity where if someone's like, hey, let's just pull off the road and check out that place. What's that? And then we'll pull off. I'll grab the mic and I'll say, hey guys, give me 30 seconds. I'm going to go talk to the cashier and then funnel in. So I rush in the store and I go straight to the cashier and I say, hey, heads up. We have a tour bus that just rolled and there's like 40 people in there. I'm just giving you a heads up so you're not like, oh my God, why is there 40 people in my store? And they usually laugh when you say that. And they'll say, hey, we got a bus. And then from that point, I say, hey, these folks are from overseas. They're really cool. A lot of them work in the industry. And yeah, we're just going from point A to point B and thought we'd go buy some snacks for the road. And once you mention they're from overseas, then they really get interested and then they really want to talk to your group. And that's when a lot of fun things happen.
That's exactly what we found when we went on the road with Don Rhodes a couple years ago. And one of the things he said is he wanted pictures with frontline people because they're the heart and soul of our industry. And so what I'm hearing from you is it's great to hear from everybody. It's great to hear from the executives. Here's the big picture. Here's the strategy. Here's what may happen down the road. Here's why we built it this way. But when you talk to people in the store, it's about here's how it's working. Here's the customer interactions that day. And you might even see like a customer come up and say, hey, this person that works here, she's amazing. And this happens and this happens. So that's really, where you see how convenience stores play a role in everyday life.
Yeah, and that's a good point. It's funny you bring that up because I'm someone who has worked retail, who has worked in restaurants, and I'll never forget years ago working at this steakhouse, and the guy that owned the small chain I worked for, I don't know who he'd brought in because he quite honestly pretended like we didn't exist and like he was almost embarrassed that he had employees in his restaurant, which I found very strange. But guy came in with an attitude, just dismissed everyone like, oh, here's these poor waiters, they're beneath me, and never said a word to anyone the entire time. And I found that odd because I don't know who came in for a tour, but I can guarantee you that they did not understand anything about that company because they didn't talk to anyone who worked in the company. And I've never forgotten that. So when I go to a store, even if we do have an executive meeting with us, I always go over and I talk to the cashiers. I thank them for putting up with us because I know it's a lot of people. Just ask how their day's going. And candidly, sometimes the best information you get is from the cashiers. They're there every day. They see things. And it's important too, because if you're really interested in understanding how a brand's positioned, a big part of that is the employees and the employee quality. And you can kind of read the room and get a sense of, are these folks really kind of proud to be here and proud that someone's come to see their business? Or do they look clocked out and they're probably just like on their way out? And no judgment if that's the case. I mean, we've all probably worked for places where we felt that way, but it's always exciting when you go in a store and the store staff are just delightful. They're in a great mood. They're happy to be there and you get to chat and interact with them. So I always try to make that a big part of our tours. It's very important.
So on your tour, you started in Cleveland and you did convenience things, you did non-convenience things. You took them to a baseball game. You went to Cincinnati, you went to Knoxville, you went to Nashville, and a lot of stops along the way. But staying with the theme of the frontline employees, on LinkedIn. I think my favorite picture was, I guess somebody from your team decided it was a really good idea to walk into a competing store with a Bucky's onesie on. And by the way, onesie, not like a child's onesie, like basically a
full-on suit.
Full-on suit. And that was met with a smile and a give me a second, and then kind of some magic happened.
So it was fun because I'd worked with United Convenience Buyers on another study tour back in 2022. And on that time, we had gone to Dallas and Austin. And, as you know, that's a hotbed for just awesome stores, both cities, especially in between when you got Check Stop and all the good stuff like that. But yeah, we had visited 7-Eleven's largest Evolution store at the time, which was just super cool. That one with 2 stories, they took us all through it. It was honestly one of my favorite visits. And I know they've had some stores that are very much inspired by the learnings that they had from that store. And I saw one on the route and I was like, guys, let's just pop in here randomly. We're seeing something right before. Let's make it a 15-minute visit. I just want to see this. I'm sure you do too. Plus, I wanted to sample the Raise the Roost chicken program. But one of our crew had bought a Bucky's onesie after we came out of the store in Crossville. So we go into the 7-Eleven and honestly, I think we found the best employees in the entire company. They were amazing. We go in, one lady's up on a ladder, literally cleaning the air vents meticulously. That store was so insanely spotless. But one of the other staff, she saw that the Bucky costume came in. She runs in the back room and gets a Slurpee costume. And then I hear this roar and I see a crowd of our crew over by the 2 of them as they're dancing on video and people are filming them. And we got a Slurpee costume and a Bucky Beaver dancing. And it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. And that's a thing. That's a kind of spontaneity that you want on a study tour. There wasn't a person on that bus that left there with a negative impression about the company. I mean, it was awesome. It was really fun.
Mm-hmm. So also, you're driving a long distance. And when we talked about the Don Rhodes trip a couple of years ago, we had some certain criteria, where we're not going to argue over music. We're going to agree on some commonalities. Were there any bus rules that you guys had? Like when you get off the bus and you go to the next stop, or get on the bus, go to the next stop, was there just a lot of chatter? Did people tend to be on their phones? Was there, convenience themed music? How did this all play out so that you kept 40 people engaged intellectually and emotionally?
Yeah, we didn't really have too many issues with the bus. The bus, to be quite honest, is always the part that stresses me out the most when I plan a study tour, because when you get a sufficiently large group, obviously you need a motor coach or a big 50-person bus, and that represents the largest potential failure point for any visit, because what if they don't show up? What if they don't come the next day? What if they decide they don't like you? I mean, there's all kinds of issues. So I work incredibly hard to make sure the bus driver likes us and we treat them well. Oftentimes involving them in the tour, because, for example, our driver this time, she was from Cincinnati. And so when we were going through Cincinnati and we had people asking me questions about why is this way? Why is this that way? A lot of times I would just give her the microphone. I'm like, let's ask her. She lives here. And she'd definitely have opinions on it. And that's the kind of thing that I like. I do try to involve as much as I can whenever I plan a study tour, what I like to call opinionated locals. And it'll usually be friends of mine or people in the industry where I say, you just want to hang out with us for a day and ride around. And the benefit of that is you always have increased access to people who can talk about the different neighborhoods, the different suburbs, even down to the level of individual differences between stores within a company, and just really kind of fill in some of those gaps that, as much as I like to think I know about something, I'm not always going to be able to cover some of those gaps. So that really helps a lot and it keeps the conversation flowing. But the other thing is you just have to read the room sometimes and allow yourself to diverge from your schedule. So if you run ahead of schedule all day, then that's easy. So for example, I've never really figured out why this is. Obviously, they don't have Walmart in their country, but Walmart is a very appealing place to just pop in and visit, I've noticed, for overseas study tours. They always want to go. And so it didn't take very long before our group was like, hey, mate, we need to go to a Walmart. We want to go see Walmart. So we stopped in this Walmart just in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky. And it was honestly really fun. But, sometimes you forget that even if you've been around that brand, there's a lot to learn about it, because seeing how folks who aren't from where you are perceive something you're used to is a very interesting learning experience. And, they're like, man, Walmart's awesome. This store's spotless. It's clean. And, I'm like, well, Walmart's really up their standards a lot. Yeah, it's not what it was when I was back in high school. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, they've really stepped up their game in a big way. I mean, the store was immaculate, and we had a similar experience at Dollar General. I like to show people all sides of every coin, and well, I think we know why I would go to a Dollar General if I'm showing a certain side of a coin there. So we popped in one in the middle of nowhere, about 50 minutes outside of Cleveland, and I walked in with one of my buddies from the area, and we looked at each other, and our jaw dropped, and I said, what is this? This is the fanciest Dollar General I've ever seen in my life. It was spotless. I mean, just modern. Everything's merchandised well. I went and found the employees and I said, hey, I've been to hundreds of these, and I'm not exaggerating. And I said, this is the single nicest Dollar General I've ever seen in my life. I was like, I don't know what you guys are doing, but you're crushing it here. And so we had a long chat with the store staff because of this, and it was super interesting. But then I sent everybody home thinking Dollar General is like this upscale retailer. But see, that's interesting because if you form an opinion about a brand, well, clearly they've raised their standards, if that's what I was finding. And that's interesting to see too. So I don't know. The point is, like, everyone has their opinions, but just because you're used to something, don't forget that others might not be, and just have fun and take them there at the end of the day.
And it's how do you find different ideas across the globe and across channels, and that's really what it's. We found more going on road trips, going to some bar that had a carousel in it, and it's slowly spinning around. Not because of consumption, but you're on a carousel and you're riding a pony. And why am I this age doing this? Because it was fun. And it's just those moments that you see. Okay, that doesn't mean a convenience store should have a carousel, but it means you want to think this way. And thinking about that concept, I know you like coffee. So, I'm not, people may be shocked by what I'm about to say, but, you pointed out some great coffee places within the industry. And then you pointed out on LinkedIn, once again, go see where you had a $42 cup of coffee, and you said you'd do it again.
It was 45 plus tip, and I tipped them $15 because they were awesome. So I spent $60 on a pour over, which is not something I've done before, but honestly, I'd go back there in a heartbeat. So I'm a bit of a coffee snob. It's the same reason I like expensive wine. It's the same hobby, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, coffee is a rabbit hole that goes very deep and has a tremendous amount of history. And when you really get into it, it's just hard to get out of that. The fact is that and I would say as an American thing, most Americans do not know what good coffee tastes like because they've been drinking commodity grade beans over roasted for consistency. So you taste the roast, not the bean. And Now and Then in Nashville is the most insane coffee experience anywhere in the United States. I constantly seek out sort of higher end third wave cafes and roasters when I travel. And I've just never seen anything like this. The closest comparison would be like a Japanese omakase coffee experience. And to be fair, I think that is where some of the inspiration came from. But the two owners, one of them, she's a competition level barista. She's very well known in the coffee community. She's placed very highly in a lot of competitions. And it's one of those things where you go in, you have 10 or 12 seats. I'd sat on the wait list for 20 minutes before they let me and another couple in. And you pay a lot of money for very high-end stuff, and it's getting prepared by people who are at the absolute top of their game. And I find stuff like that inspiring. It's not to say that a convenience store should do that, because the average coffee consumer wouldn't know what to do with that. But it'd just be like if you were to sell a high-end bottle of Margaux or a Hal Mountain Cabernet, or you're like, hey, here we got Moon Dance, and this is why this is the best in Russian River, in my opinion. The average consumer is not going to know what to do with that. And that's fine. I'm not saying they necessarily should, but it's inspiring to be around anyone who's at the top of their game, because the couple and I next to me were talking. I was like, man, I want to go back home and read several more of my coffee history books. And I want to start introducing a lot more complexity and variables into my pour overs, because I'm encouraged. This is exciting to see someone that good at what they do. And that's a good feeling, but it's also, coffee's an interesting thing. I could talk for hours on this. I think our industry has a tremendous opportunity to win on coffee and absolutely deliver a lights out blow to the likes of Starbucks and Dunkin'. I really truly do.
You and I both went to the same place this summer twice daily, White
Yeah.
Bison, which they said that we're going to have coffee that rivals Starbucks, and we're not going to do it by a marketing slogan. We're going to do it by having coffee that rivals them, and they will tell you where the beans
Absolutely.
came from. They, just like if you go to say Five Guys and for their French fries, they say the French fries came from here. They tell you where the beans are from, and they vary, and they shop, and and they're they're so into having great coffee that you went to one of their standalone places that they only sell coffee and related things like that. It is not a convenience store. It is not a gas station. It's a coffee house, and that's saying how much they went out and said we believe in this product.
Yeah, Twice Daily is really interesting to me for a lot of reasons. And shout out to Dawn, their VP of marketing, because anyone who's met Dawn knows like what an incredible host she is. And
Yeah, she was great.
Awesome hospitality, just made everyone feel so welcome and shared so much about what they're doing. But Twice Daily, if you go to that 12th South location in Nashville, and for anyone listening, just Google Twice Daily 12th South. It's a standalone White Bison. The 12th South neighborhood is interesting because right down the street is a standalone Vuori store, which, that's what I'm wearing right now. I love Vuori, but the point about Vuori is...
Send them to Frank Beard if you want more. Just send them a case of merchandise.
Look, I'm shameless, and if they ever want to send me anything, I have no qualms about that. That's my favorite clothing brand. But the thing is, where you tend to see a Vuori store is not the kind of place that you would tend to see a gas station coffee brand. Let's put it plainly. And I love what Twice Daily did because, yes, they do have some Twice Daily coffee, but they also created the White Bison brand because they wanted to go to market with something that can go against these coffee shops. So they built a coffee shop brand. And I think that's great. Part of why I wanted to go too is we had a retailer on our tour from Vantage Fuels in Australia, and they're around the kind of on the outskirts of the Melbourne area, north of the city especially. But they had done a similar thing where they created a coffee brand called Bowser Bean, and I think those, in my opinion, in their market and ours, those Twice Daily and White Bison and Bowser Bean are kind of the two most forward thinking that are really kind of looking at, well, what's really next here? And it's interesting because the US, if you look at how coffee developed here, we don't really have a big barista culture. That's a very long story I won't get into that has a lot to do with, industrialized food production, population density, the suburbs, the car centricity in the culture versus Australia, where there's a higher baseline for coffee quality, even if you're not a coffee nerd, because you're going to be getting coffee more likely from a barista, from an actual cafe, and it's going to be more espresso based versus straight, drip coffee out of batch brewing. So they were fascinated to see Twice Daily and see here is a company that is trying very hard to put, to put a barista in a convenience store. And the coffee, everyone really was raving about it. I encouraged a few to get pour overs because they do have Mod Bar's pour over equipment installed in the counters, and they can do a pour over using a Kalita 185. But whether they were getting an espresso shot, a latte, a pour over, everybody was raving about it. And I don't know, that was fun. I really like what they're doing, and I'm very curious to see where that goes because I do think they're onto something.
And so, as I said, we visited Twice Daily. It's going to be part of a Ideas to Go episode that will be showing at the NAC show in Chicago, October 14th through 17th. Just want to set that aside. But one other thing just to talk about before a couple other switching gears for a little bit, but branded merch. You and I have a lot of T-shirts and a lot of other things from various stores we visited. We both have White Bison T-shirts. I saw you have the exact same one I have.
Oh yeah.
But you found a lot of branded merch on the road, and I've seen a lot more. It's gone well beyond Buc-ee's. And I remember talking to somebody from Brew Through a couple of years ago, like 10 years ago. We visited them, and he said what's really important is if you're going to have merch, put the year on it. Because where they are is they're in a tourist area, so same people come every year. And that's a 2013 model. I need the 2014 model. And he said there are people that say, do you have one from this year? Because that's the only year I'm missing in the last 25 years. But branded merch is a thing, and people, just like people buy Buc-ee's onesies, they're willing to buy some other things. And we saw that at Stinkers. We saw that at some other stores. Mickey's is known for their moose, and you said there's some nice opportunity there. The brand with some plushies and
Oh, yeah.
even some pet themed things.
Well, yeah, my dog's rocking a dog leash from Mickey's right now, so I couldn't resist that. To be fair, he needed a new one, and the Mickey's dog leash was pretty legit. But yeah, Mickey's is fun. I love it when a company just has fun with their brand. I think a lot of people are afraid to do that, and I've always found that kind of curious because all the brands that really do this well are just having fun with their brands. There's so much opportunity there. And when you drive through these small towns and then you see here's a brand new Mickey's with this like obnoxiously large moose head on the fuel canopy in the most hilarious way, and then this like modern store with all this branding, it's just fun. And they're smart in that they're trying to do a lot of things for kids and make it a place that a kid would want to go to.
Yep.
I mean,
and say
heck,
to
I'm
mom
an
and
adult,
dad,
I want to go there, but let's be real.
Let's go. Yes.
I mean, obviously, nobody does it better than Buc-ee's. They're kind of the OG in this space. I mean, I just came home, tried to make sure that I got a glass cutting board for my bar that has basically like a graffitied Buc-ee's graphic on the back of it. And I was like, I need this in my life. So I brought that home. But to your point about putting dates on it, I do think like anything you can do to put specificity or a limited time offer around merch can be pretty compelling in a lot of cases. Good example of how much fun you can have with this. Like, look at what a place like Tokyo Disney Sea does with the Duffy and Shelley bears. They literally have like photo ops where you put down a little board and then you can set these on there and then take a picture behind it. And I've always wondered why convenience stores couldn't do something similar. Like if you're on social media, start some kind of a campaign where like, where in the world is your stuffed animal that you sell? Mm-hmm. Encourage people to take a photo where they're on vacation and showing it in a different place and then give them something for it. Like here's a couple people a month that get something or one a week or whatever, or release an LTO Christmas version. Like maybe you've got a stuffed bear, right? Well, maybe you release different shirts or sweaters you can put on it, for employees. Sell it at cost and then make sure only employees can buy the employee sweater for the holiday season. So if they want to gift something to a kid or a niece or a nephew, they've got something unique that others can't get. And again, the answer is different for everyone, but I'm like, the convenience store industry has fun brands. It has old brands. It has brands that are intertwined into the fabric of a lot of these communities and regions in a way that the McDonald's of the world are just never going to be. And that is something that you can absolutely capitalize on with merch in a very big way.
So I want to end with the theme of fun. And I want to end by talking about two stops you made. One was gas station encounters. Talk about that awesome place. I think a lot of people aren't aware of what gas station encounters is.
Yeah. So if you don't know what gas station encounters is, go to YouTube, type in gas station encounters and hit that
all
subscribe.
Spelled normally, unlike most things in our industry, which is misspelled. That's spelled correctly.
Yes, it is actually spelled correctly. But type gas station encounters into YouTube, smash that subscribe button. You'll be one of about 2.5 million people that love to watch Brandon's videos. And basically what they've done for over a decade is they've taken videos of basically just thieves stealing, and he does the most hilarious voiceovers, narrates what's happening. They're doing the thief stare, the thief scratch. They're going to get a delicious sandwich or a delicious beverage, as he would say. And then, if once they leave the store with stuff in their pocket and didn't pay for those, he grabs his cell phone and goes out in the parking lot and confronts them. And it is the absolute best thing. He's also done a lot of videos with Fave Trip out of Kansas City. Mm-hmm. So they're another account that you should follow on YouTube. But I just think they've got a really cool story. They're a really nice family, and I just wanted to have our group get a chance to say hello to them and see the store. It's just a cool thing to stop by on the way out of Cleveland. So we stopped by the store and hope I'm saying Medina correctly, Medina, Ohio, but we stopped over there and checked it out. And that was a good time. I'm glad we did that.
And the other place, of course, that's fun if you're driving through Kentucky is you're going to stop at Hop Shops. And Hop Shops, known for their disco bathroom. I would imagine the folks from Oz were quite interested in that experience.
Yeah, I think it's fun. What I like about Hop Shops, again, is they're just trying to have fun. They're trying to put a smile on your face. And that's something I think a lot of companies forget to do. Like retail can be fun. And you start to get these like sort of quirky brand affinities and people just love these kinds of things. So Hop shops, yeah, they basically took their restrooms, they put a disco ball on the ceiling, don't press this button. So obviously you're going to press the button, and then the lights drop and the disco ball turns on and they blast music. This was the original store with the original disco bathroom where they did have a wedding inside the bathroom, which is awesome. But yeah, they're playing Return of the Mac this time was the song. So that was dead on perfect.
I was hoping they'd play Down Under for your market tour. That would have been, and have the toilet flush the opposite way, like it's rumored to do there, even though that's internet myth.
That would have been funny. But one thing I will say about, part of what was great about this route, and a lot of people are like, well, why'd you go to Cleveland? Well, there's a couple considerations. When you plan a study tour, whether they're staying in one city or whether they're doing two cities, starting and stopping, you need to think about what is there to do before and after the tour, because some folks will want to stay for a longer period of time. And the other thing is I like to bring people to a lot of secondary markets and not always just people always make the mistake. They come here and they do a study tour in the exact same places with the exact same retailers. I just think that's a critical mistake. Or God forbid they go to New York City or LA. And I'm like, look, if you want to see convenience stores, there's better places to go. I like New York City and I love LA, but yeah, you go there for other reasons. And the challenge with the United States, too, is you're never going to be able to find a market where you can say, I saw the American convenience store, because that means different places, different things in different places. Yep. The convenience store in Louisiana versus Iowa versus Philadelphia versus the Pacific Northwest, those are very different, and that's okay. So you want to focus on a good market that has a good density of good retailers, so you're not stuck driving 4 hours after you've exhausted the 3-in-1 area to go see something else. And that route that I took everyone on has a lot of fantastic retailers. I can't name everyone, but some of the usuals you'll see, like United Dairy Farmers, Clark's Pump and Shop, Weigel's, companies like that, and that you just don't typically get to see on a study tour. And it was nice to be able to see that. That's what I wanted them to see.
So we could keep going. We could make this as long as a study tour itself, but we'll probably cut it off here. So, for those, again, go to Frank's LinkedIn page. There's a lot more there. If you want him or Max to visit your stores, shoot us a line. We're always thirsty to go find a new experience, because it makes everyone who visits a new store better understand the industry and better able to represent it. So, thank you for your time today, Frank, and thank you for taking these tours and educating folks about what's going on in the U.S. and what they can take back to Australia or wherever. And let's continue these great experiences. So thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. And again, just search for me on LinkedIn. It's Frank Beard. ZZ Top's drummer's not on there, so I'm pretty easy to find. And it's shoot me a message anytime. I love to talk about this stuff, but I'm posting a lot of photos still probably over the next week or so. So drop me a follow and take a look.
We will stay in touch. And thank you all for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.